Hey there, investors. Welcome to another video. Today we'll be looking at Micron Technology. The ticker symbol for Micron Technology is MU. And the reason we'll be looking at Micron Technology is because of unusual option activity. Remember, we look at unusual option activity because that is where the smart money is. And the smart money is made up of large, sophisticated institutional investors with buying powers in millions. And then these are the investors that are either buying large volumes of calls or large volumes of puts, thinking that a price of a stock is going to go in either direction. And that is what we define as unusual option activity. And the great thing is that options give us a time frame, which is the expiration on contracts, and that is a good range to determine when the price of a stock could hit the price that investors think. And they give us a strike price, which is where investors think the stock price is going to go. So we're going to take a look at some other trades and see if we should follow the smart money trades or take a more conservative position so we can try to make a return. Remember, investors, these videos are for entertainment purposes. Please check out the disclaimer in the description below as well as other information covered in this video. So let's dive right in. So Micron Technology, you can see that the stock has been climbing today. And there's been a lot of activity lately in the semiconductor space. So Micron Technology is a company that operates in that industry, and we want to take a look at unusual option activity to see what the current sentiment is for the stock. And when we look at the most active options of the day, we can see that Micron Technology has a put to call ratio of 0.35, or in other words, a low ratio, meaning that there are more calls than there are puts. And you can see that through this number here under the call column, which is signifying that 74% of the option contracts open are calls versus 25 being puts. So let's look at what's been going on in the news that's kind of driving this trend, because this is really good positive indication of where Micron could be going and what investors think of the stock. So when we look at some of the news for Micron, and again, Micron is engaged in semiconductor systems. The company's portfolio of memory technologies includes dynamic random access memory, or DRAM, and negative and flash and NOR flash for solid state drives. So they're like a chip manufacturer, semiconductor industry. And when we look at some of the news, we could see biggest analyst calls of the day. Let's see, Goldman Sachs has several strategies. Latest news from the partners. You can see here specifically, and what I wanted to point out is that Micron Western gain on report that Samsung will maintain DRAM. So when we open up that link, you can see that Micron and Western Digital, which apparently is another company in that space, gained because of a report that came out from Samsung saying that the company is going to maintain its DRAM forecast or expense levels to either a low level or are in line with what they were considering, which is good for these companies such as Micron and Western Digital because they're in the same competitive area. So if Samsung is not planning on spending as much in DRAM, then that gives the chance for these companies to take advantage of that situation and either gain more market share or get more customer or just get more traction and get the ball rolling. So that's really good, and we could see that's kind of what is driving the stock, the price action today in the stock. So now, with that being said, let's take a look at what positions these smart investors are taking when it comes to Micron Technology. And to do that, we want to look at the option chain. So when we look at the option chain, we see that right away, open interest, meaning the number of open option contracts for the stock, is trending pretty high for these strike prices here. So we see that in the 80s and 50s. So there's a lot of activity going on here. And it looks like, based on the strike prices, the highest strike price that investors think it could reach is roughly around 80s. A little bit more conservative, since you see here there's one volume, a very large volume for 85 as well. So let's kind of take a look at some technical analysis and see if the stock could reach these levels, roughly the 75 and above levels that investors think it will hit, and that'll help us understand why they're going there. And so when we look at it, you can see right away I created these two lines to kind of point out some support levels and levels of resistance that stand out visually on the 1-day chart. And remember, these are levels that practically all investors are looking at, because they are also seeing what the stock is doing and what the price action is going. And you can see Micron is reaching these new highs that hasn't been reached in the past, so we're treading in sort of new territory here. However, we can see that those two lines serve as really good levels of support and resistance, and you can see that the stock has been consolidating around there. So once it broke past this level of support or resistance, it consolidated around this new level of resistance and didn't exactly break it, and now is looking to break that resistance. So that action is really good action. We could also see the stock is trading well above the moving averages, including the 9-day, 20, and 50, which is a really good indicator. So that's exactly what we want to see when it comes to the stock. So now that we got a good grasp, we can also take a look at some of the levels that the stock is going to hit. And to do that, there's a quick analysis that is provided on this website, stockconsultant.com, and I've been using it every now and then for stocks that have a lot of history. It's not as useful for new companies, such as companies that have been IPO'd in more recent weeks, but you can see here that we're above the 72.47, which kind of serves as a level of support and resistance there. And you can see that after the line of resistance here, roughly around the 75, there really is no other level of resistance above that. So investors are betting that the company, on this positive news for them, will be able to break past that level. So now let's take a look at what our position would be and why. And to do that, we'll go back to the option chain. So we'll go to the open interest, and looking at the option chain, the most attractive position that I think is conservative when it comes to these measures and considering where the stock is trading would be at this 70 strike price, because we see that there is still active volume here, but also very high open interest. And you can see that 70 strike price also serves as a good level of support. So should our position not work out the way it does, we have good upside or downside, and then minimize our stop loss, because of course we want to set stop losses. So with that being said, I took the liberty of compiling what the idea would be if we were to go for that 70 strike price range. So when you look at the trade specifically, you get the January 15th expiration, 70 calls for roughly around this price. I know right now it's currently trading, so we would want to get in anywhere above the resistance of 73.93, which you can see here, and we want to do that in a bullish market. So say the stock is climbing back down and it's trending right around 73.93, we wouldn't want to get in if the trend of the chart looks like it's going down, right, like a down flag. So we want to try to do it in an up flag, which is kind of where the stock is now. So anywhere, anywhere, and the stock will probably come back down a little bit and maybe close a little bit lower, but you can see that typically there's a third pop in these types of patterns when you see a one day increase, and then the second day increase. Usually there's a third increase, sort of like a staircase, right? This is like one stair, and then the second stair, and then the third stair. So that could be a really positive sign that the stock could break out of this range. So that right there is the trade. Again, the resistance levels based off of the highs and the levels up here. Since there are no resistance levels in that range in particular, mostly are based off of these, or roughly around that range. So these are levels where we would close at, and again, our stop loss would be with the stock coming back down that level of resistance, which you can see is roughly around there, or support, I mean. And then if the conditions turn bearish, then we would take the opposite position so that we can try to make some money, right? So if the conditions and the market momentum turn bearish, this would be the downside approach that we would take. So getting the puts and check out the options there. There's still a lot of open interest. And then the support levels that would be targeting, again, based off of previous levels of support or resistance. So you can see that there. And then the 70, 64, and 69, 37, roughly around those ranges. So that would be those targets, and the stop loss for the put position would be with the stock coming back up to that original level of resistance or trading right above that. So that would be the call there. And again, I want to emphasize that this is for the 70 strike price on the calls. There's roughly around 31 million or $31.6 million in this position. So that's a very strong indication of where the smart money is going. Again, let me know what you guys think about the trade idea or about Micron. And this would be the last video of 2020, so Happy New Year to everyone. Thanks again for watching, and stay tuned for more videos in the year to come.